Caller, are you there?
Hey, Jason, it's Joel.
Oh, it's Joel.
From Stack Overflow.
Welcome to the program, Joel. Joel Spolsky, of course, of Stack Overflow, the awesome question and answer site, and also Joel on Software, the incredible blog. People in the chat room are going crazy. Fog Creek, everybody knows Joel. Joel's a famous guy. I don't know why Joel's calling it. I should be doing Ask Joel. But
well,
you have a question
for one afterwards.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I will do that
for you.
So let me hear the question.
Well, because we haven't. But Fog Creek is a bootstrapped company, and
right?
We wanted it that way. We wanted to gently grow it quietly. I wanted to do one startup in my whole life that I wanted to be a place to work at for my whole life, and I didn't want VCs, taking that away or anything.
Sure.
But having done that, having established that, it turns out that my second startup, which is Stack Overflow, is a little bit more of a swing for the fences kind of situation.
Okay.
Possibly.
Sure.
So we're starting to get serious interest from some VCs, and we have one particular VC that we really like. We like the person, we like the partner. He's got the right kind of experience. It's a decent firm. It's a good firm, and we're presenting to the partners. That's the stage we're at. We haven't yet presented to all the partners.
Right.
But so I don't want to say it's a. Now this is basically what we got without going out looking for capital. This
right.
This
fell in your lap.
They came to us. Yeah. And,
awesome.
And various other, VC sends us little gifts all the time, so I think we're on their radar.
Sure.
So here's my question for you. The question is, do we just go with this, or do I take 6 months off and go walk up and down Sand Hill Road and try to get competitive bids?
Okay, this is a great question. A lot of people who are first-time entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are doing their first time raising capital like you are, they get in this situation. A VC contacts them. The VC is impressive. Maybe they've got a good track record. Maybe they invested in some great companies. The partner, you hit it off, and you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Much like when you go to a new high school or college, or maybe you move to a new city and you meet a new boyfriend or girlfriend. You're like, oh my God, this is the greatest girl ever. But you just moved to the city. You don't know exactly if this is the best girlfriend or boyfriend ever. And you probably want to date a little bit. You probably want to see what else is out there. So there is a way to do this without actually insulting everybody, which is you say you're running a process and that your partners and you, this is the way to say it diplomatically to the VC you currently have. Listen, we have a lot of interest from a number of people. And I'm sure you understand that my partners and I, the shareholders in the company, the people who work at the company, would like to actually meet everybody and make a really educated decision, because we're going to be working with whoever we take this investment from, in all likelihood, for 3 to 7 years, probably 5.
Yep.
And that's what it takes. So we really appreciate your interest. Right now, we would be blown away to work with you. But we need probably about 2 weeks to finish our rounds, and then we're going to come back to you, and we're going to ask for a term sheet, and we're going to look at the offers we have. We're going to compare them, and see who we think is the best partner for us. Are you okay with that? I just want to make sure I sort of be transparent with you, and I don't want to waste your time. And of course they're going to say to you, because what else can they say? Of course,
yeah,
of course, run your process. It's no problem.
Sure. Yeah.
And
I'm not that worried about necessarily insulting anyone.
Right.
So much as just, I know it takes a long time to go through that process, and, people tell stories of it being 6 months and 9 months and a year. And that's time that we could be building our business.
It's 6 months or 9 months when the idea is not good.
Oh, okay.
It is 6 days when the idea is amazing and great. And it might be 6 weeks when the idea is somewhere between those two things. So, for example, with Mahalo, it was like 10 days. Other companies I've been involved with, they go on the road, it takes 3 months. It takes 2 or 3 months. So I would say ballpark, since you have this one ready to go in all likelihood, and you're going to present to the partner, the amount of time it takes to prepare and present to their partnership and what you learn there, you're going to have done 90% of the work. So then you should just do what we call a road show. You should go to Sand Hill Road. You pick the 10 VC firms that you like best, and the way you pick them is look at what they've invested in, what exits they've had, and you can just contact them and say, listen, we're doing a process. We've had some interest. Would you like to see what we're doing? Very short email. And then link to your very impressive Quantcast ratings that you've broken into the top 1,000 sites on the internet in just like under a year. Very impressive,
Yeah.
without any resources is to speak of. Let me ask James, who is here with me from EdgeCast, who's, I think you've raised capital twice or maybe 3 times?
In different companies, different entities, yeah.
So what you heard my response, you heard Joel's concerns. Is this a major time suck? Is it worth it to see 5, 10, 15? How many on average do you go visit?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's difficult to come up with a hard and fast rule. I'd say if you've worked with venture capitalists before and you feel like you have a good sense for judging them, reviewing them, evaluating them, then you could probably get the process done, to Jason's point, pretty quickly. I mean, especially someone like you or me who's been through it is going to get through these guys quick. But if you haven't necessarily done it before, you might want to take a little extra time. So you might want to, go through and actually, spend some time getting to know these folks. Do a lot of reference calls. That's the key thing. So even if you get in bed with some folks, and let's say you narrow it down to 3 or 4, and they all make you good offers, you need to take a lot of time before you decide. You want to call every CEO who's ever worked with them. You want to ask these guys, hey, who have you invested in that doesn't like you? Which of your investments have failed? Those are the folks you want to talk to. And you want to get on the phone with Jason and me and everybody you know and find out from your sort of network what these guys are really like. Because they're sitting on your board. They're making your life either living hell or it can be a great 3 to 6 year run.
Exactly. I mean, you have to pick this like picking a spouse or a partner.
It's that serious.
It's really that serious. You will spend, and there will be hard times. No company, even if you're successful, there's going to be a lot of hard times because nothing breeds contempt like success, I can tell you. Mm-hmm. I've been involved in some very successful things. Holy cow, some people lose their SHIT. Like, I can't curse on this show because I'm going to get problems with the iTunes because Steve Jobs doesn't like people cursing on the podcast. But you've got to be really careful. And somebody in the chat room asked, what is Sand Hill Road? Sand Hill Road, you can just type it into Wikipedia or Mahalo or Bing, any of those amazing services. And what you will see is Sand Hill Road is an area. It's like literally a road in Palo Alto, out in Silicon Valley in California, Northern California, just south of San Francisco, about 20 minutes south of San Francisco. And there are literally hundreds, probably 200, 300 venture capital firms there. They all have the same buildings, and you can, in one day, visit 5 VC firms for an hour each and drive less than 1 mile between them, and walk, actually, in the same buildings and complex. So the one thing that James said that I want to just highlight is he said you have to call and ask for references. This will make you look very, very astute to the venture capitalists. So when I was working with Sequoia, and Roloff both was interested in Mahalo, and I was interested in Sequoia Capital, obviously who wouldn't be, and they said, we're interested, and do you have a couple of references, people you've worked with? And of course, here's my partner Brian Alvey, and here's this person, here's that person, and I said to them, like, actually, I didn't even say to them. I looked at who Roloff had worked with before on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I contacted those people on my own.
Oh, yeah.
And I just emailed them and said, hey, do you have 5 minutes to discuss what it's like to work with Sequoia? And then when I talked to Roloff at the next meeting, he's like, oh, I heard you were talking to some of our CEOs. Mm-hmm. I was like, yes, of course. They had such amazing things to say about you. And when you talk to them, say, what do you think their weaknesses are? It's standard questions. But there's also another great site, thefunded.com, run by Adeo, who does the Funded Institute, which is both are high-quality products in my estimation. And the Funded is sort of anonymous commentary by startups that I think is probably about 90% correct, probably about 10% fake. So it's sort of like Yelp or anything else on the web. That's a message board, review board. And overall, you'll get some interesting insights into your VCs.
One other quick comment is there's the partner that invests in your company, and that's like a direct relationship.
Yes.
But then there's the actual firm itself.
Correct.
Because you got to keep in mind that you might have this great relationship with this partner, they sit on your board, they invest, and then they hop to another firm. You got some stranger who you don't really know who's sitting on your board.
Correct.
So you got to make sure, A, that's a good relationship with your partner, but B, that there's a backup relationship and another backup relationship.
Because what if they leave the firm, and this happens? You think, I got the greatest guy since sliced bread on my board, or gal. They leave. They go to another firm. Somebody else is joining your board, and they're busting your chops. You're like, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I'm an adult. I don't need you to come here and ask me what my China strategy is, or what will Stack Overflow do if Microsoft decides
if Google goes into your business.
Yeah, if Google goes in, if Microsoft decides to put a Stack Overflow in every web development kit, what will you do? And it's like, I don't know.
There's a link on the desktop.
Exactly. They're going to put a link on the desktop to Microsoft Overflow. It's like, relax. So this is good. Now since we have you on the phone, and I had sent you a private message, because I always ask Joel when I have questions about developers, because although I'm a CEO, I did very bad development of Lotus Notes and scripting, and it was a horrible program. Joel is actually an excellent programmer. And so I asked you a question in email. I want to share with the rest of the audience, which is, I've been reading this book on, I should say reading, I don't read, I read email, but I listen to Audible. And Audible has a book called Talent is Overrated. It's an awesome book. It talks about, the basic premise of the book is like, listen, Tiger Woods and Mozart, they were not inherently good at what they did. They had parents who took off from work and spent all their time doing deliberate practice with them to get better. And so my question to you is, since you work with developers and know their mindset very well, how can the concept of deliberate practice, or just how in general, do programmers get better at what they do? And should a startup company do something with their time with developers to actually have them develop their skills and get better in practice, or is the practice inherent in what they do every day?
It's a good question. It depends on the type of development they're doing. So there's a certain class of developers. They used to be called COBOL programmers, and then they were called Visual Basic programmers, and now they're called Java programmers. And that class of programmers, and now obviously this is a huge generalization, but that class of programmers are often just doing the same thing for year in and year out. Like they made one report, and then they made another report, and then they made another report, and they made another report. Then they made an input screen for the first report, and then they made an input screen for the second report, and they repeat for 14 years. They're not learning anything. And on the other hand, there's another class of developers that are really kind of always learning new things, and what you'll generally see is that they're using a reasonably modern technology at work, whatever the technologies are, because they would be bored in a VB or a Java shop. So they're working somewhere in Python or Ruby. And at home, they've got list compilers that they wrote themselves, and they're using weird academic languages that have just been invented, and they're always trying that stuff out on their new projects. And of course, they're bloody from the experience, but they are sort of learning new things. And so, if you're in that first category, and you could say that your last year of developer experience is pretty much the same as the year before it, then you're not really learning new stuff, and there's definitely some obvious things to start with. And I have recommendations for people. Like if you've never learned a functional programming language, they're great ways to do that. So learn a functional programming language, Lisp or Scheme or one of those type languages. If you've never done anything in a low-level language, just for kicks, learn some assembler or C if you've never done that. So there's ways to really kind of broaden your brain. If you've never done Python or Ruby, good God, get out there and do that for a fun project. Now, from our position as the business owner or the employer of these programmers, a common thing is to give them a couple of days off to do whatever project you want with whatever tool you want. Google has something called 20% time, so if you come in on the weekends, you can spend.
Yeah, that's sort of the joke of it. It's become 120% time.
Yeah. Doing something. But some other companies will often do that formally. They'll literally say, all right, we're taking 2 days off, whatever it is that we're doing, and everybody just builds something. And it sort of depends on the type of situation you're in, but if you have a tool, you can ask people to try to make plugins for that tool, or make their own personal site, whatever it may be. Just something where they want to learn something new and they want to kind of stretch and do something a little bit different. And you'll find that they'll almost always, if they're good programmers and they're curious, they'll want to use a new programming language or some new tool that they haven't used before.
Right. Okay. This is great advice. My group falls into the latter. I am very thankful for your advice, because my team is doing just that. They have been embracing things like Django and Cassandra and teaching each other. Mm-hmm. And the only thing we really don't do here, because we're on a pretty aggressive competitive schedule, is the 20% time. That being said, I think that this will be the year basically 4 of Mahalo, when we actually could, now that we're getting overstaffed and trying to have maybe 50% more developers than we need, we could actually rotate people on a sort of like maybe 25% of the staff could be doing, say, we could put them in a room and say, hey, do something like X.
Depending on the culture of your organization, you may actually find some benefit to that. So I'm thinking of certain companies. The investment banks have a reputation, believe it or not, because they want to hire the best developers in the world. Like Goldman Sachs prides themselves on only having, PhDs from MIT or whatever. And those guys don't want to work on what Goldman Sachs needs them to work on. So they pretty much give them free reign, or they give them a little bit of free reign in terms of what technology they're using, what tools they're using.
Right.
And if you walk into one of those investment banks, you'll find that the entire development team is always porting their entire trade management system from one programming language to another programming language. It's just a little bit cooler. And it's a complete waste of time, and it's a complete waste of money, and their managers know this, but they let them because that's what it takes to have the PhDs from MIT working on your trading system. Is that they want to rewrite it from Python, which was hot 3 weeks ago, to Clojure, which is hot this week.
Interesting.
So in a situation like that, you might even benefit from 20% time. You might say, you know what, you guys do whatever the hell you want on Friday, but Monday through Thursday, you work on the Java trading application. No risk, well-known technologies.
Yep.
Get your learning kicks from something else.
Right. Awesome.
That's probably the Google philosophy a little bit, is they don't want you doing things like Google Buzz and then rolling it out on Gmail and ruining their whole business.
I love it. I know.
Terrifying
What do you think? You think it's too terrifying, too much, too fast, too aggressive?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's sort of like what happened to Google Wave. Weren't we supposed to all be doing Google Wave 3 weeks ago?
I just think it's
Google reinventing email.
Yeah, I'm loving it, but I'm an edge case, obviously. But holy cow,
they're frightening people, and they're doing it on one of their core assets, not their super core asset, but one of their core assets. Can you imagine if they did something like that to their advertisers?
A little bit crazy,
Anything.
but
I just change the font in AdWords. The advertisers would go nuts.
You know what? You're right. They would. However, I think they see Facebook as such a competitive threat that they're willing to take the risk. Joel, thank you for calling in. Thank you for answering my question. James, do you have anything to add to that on the keeping smart people engaged and deliberate?
I'd be curious for Joel's feedback as well, because we run a big network. We're pushing a ton of traffic, growing at a phenomenal rate. And the reason our engineers like it is because they get to break things all the time.
Right.
And what they like about breaking things is, of course, they get to fix things.
Yes.
And so that is something that people really get turned on about. So I think that if you're in a more stable environment and it's maybe a little less action-packed, that must be tough. Every other day I wish I was in a stable environment, but I'm not.
What you're referring to is firemen, firefighters. I always try to use a non-gender specific. It's hard to do when
fire people.
No, firefighters. That's it.
There you go.
Non-gender specific. It's like the firefighters who go and then light a fire in the mountains so they can go light it on fire. That's what you're saying, right? That's what your people do?
Yeah, but it's also
they cause chaos in order to fix it. I'm just kidding.
Right.
They don't do that.
But they do push the cutting edge of technology, right? So if you can get certain productivity out of a server or a switch or a router,
they want to do it.
And then we break it. Then you want to take it to the next. You want to double or triple the productivity.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about a startup, and that's going to happen naturally in a startup, is that whatever was working 3 weeks ago, if you're growing at the right rate, is not working anymore.
Yeah.
And so, those are opportunities to learn things, and that's what's sort of fun about it. I mean, Jeff Atwood, who is the sort of the tech lead on Stack Overflow, had a great time building his own servers and then adding memory to the servers when they fell down and then adding more servers when the one server couldn't handle it. And that was really like a learning process for him. He'd never done that stuff before and was really interesting and fun. And that's why I like startups. I've been doing File Creek now for 10 years, and every year is different, what I have to do and what I'm facing.
You prefer to be a samurai as opposed to being a rice farmer. I understand, Joel. It's my new analogy. It's like everybody in the world, 90% of people in the world, they work on a rice farm, they collect the rice. And the 10% of us who start companies and the people who work for our companies and with us are the samurai, and we protect the village. Good seeing you last week in New York, and we'll talk to you soon. The best place for people to find you is obviously at what?
JoelOnSoftware.com.
JoelOnSoftware.com. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Jason.